everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're sitting down with Father Rich, and we're going to get to know a little bit more about the man behind the collar. You ready for your first question?
I certainly am.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about your growing up? What parish did you belong to? Tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Okay, well, when I was born, my family lived on the east side of Buffalo. And this is important. I actually lived next door to a church.
Oh.
My first home. So my mom and dad, I have one sister who's 4 years older than myself. We lived right next door to Queen of the Most Holy Rosary in Buffalo. And that was important because growing up, priests were my next door neighbors. They weren't strangers or people you see way up there. They were people you wave at and people that were nice to you and all. So I lived there until before I started school. When we were about 5 years old, we moved just about 2 miles from here, actually. Resurrection Parish in Cheektowaga. That was my home. And I went to school there, the Resurrection and everything. Like I said, my mom and my dad. My sister is married. She has 3 girls, and they've produced 7 great-grandnephews and nieces for me.
Wow,
so,
that's wonderful.
So the family's growing that way and all this stuff. So, so I'm a local boy, east side of Buffalo, and then Cheektowaga, which is a common experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, growing up at Resurrection, were you involved in any ministries, stuff like that?
I was very, very, very involved in many things in the school, altar server, Boy Scout. I was in the Boy Scouts there and in the grammar school, and it was mostly through the school there, the Good Felician nuns. And it probably is one of your questions down the line, but very early I had thought of possibly becoming a priest, so they knew that, and they took good care of me that way because they knew that was on my mind. So
absolutely. With growing up with your priests next door, did that help with your vocation?
It did. Like I said, it made them human. I mean, they weren't these people you saw on Sundays. They were next door neighbors. I would talk to them across the fence every now. I was a kid at the time, though, but they were regular guys. They weren't anything strange. Plus, I also have a cousin, a little older than myself, a second cousin, who was in the seminary at the time, became a priest. So I was probably introduced and more comfortable with that environment. And I know that's a lot of things that keeps guys away now. It seems so strange or so different and everything. And the people I knew were just everyday folks like everybody else, but just with a special calling. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your vocation story? Like, when did you start to feel your calling?
Well, like I said, I grew up so familiar with it. It was always there. And, it's funny because one of the things I've heard for years is that people have been saying to encourage vocations, priests should tell their stories. And not that I'm not proud of mine or embarrassed, but I haven't told mine that often because it seems to be a little old-fashioned in one way, but also a little unique. Like I said, I grew up next to a church. How many people do that? How many people do that and all? And again, I had a cousin who was a priest and everything. And back in my day, in grammar school, we were always invited. So the priests, I think any boy who went through Catholic school somewhere thought about being a priest because that's what they were told about. But I always put it down back when I was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
My sister was in 8th grade. I told you she was a little older. And back then there were so many Catholic high schools, they had a booklet that you could choose your Catholic high school from. And she had gotten hers in 8th grade. And I was nosy, so I grabbed it. I was looking it over. And the very first page was the seminary high school. Now, it closed the year I graduated from high school, so it's been closed since 1970, so 55 years. But I knew right from that point in time that there was such a thing as a seminary high school, and that would be the first step. And that's, like I said, that's unusual for my story because in the old days, that was the way just about everybody did it. Most of the older priests started in high school and college and all the way through. But like I said, it closed actually the year I graduated, which is 74. And so my way is not the way guys have available to them now. We didn't have a seminary high school. And so I went to seminary high school, and it was a day school. Many boarded at the school at the time, but it was a day school, so I went back and forth on the public buses like everybody else. And it was a wonderful faculty, including Father Steller, one of our family members.
Wow.
He taught me social studies and history and things along that line. And it was a wonderful priest. And I always said, people say, how did you know when you were 14 that you wanted to be a priest?
Right.
I was lucky. I took a lucky guess.
Okay.
In the process, I changed my mind a couple times and thought of this and the other thing. But there was something there that was drawing me. I enjoyed the high school experience, had a wonderful time in my college seminary experience, was up in Ogdensburg, northern New York. And it just felt right. So I just went step by step. But I started early. In 5th grade, it was in my mind. And started I started in ninth grade as a freshman in high school. So
That's amazing.
it was always part of mine. Yeah.
What would you say? Well, you had a very different experience, you're saying, with the seminary high school.
Right.
What would you say to a young man right now who is discerning their call, trying to figure out what they wanted to do? What's your best piece of advice?
I think the best thing I would think of is talk to a priest that you admire. Because it is a different situation now. Most guys, there is a college seminary the diocese uses. They send people to St. Mark's in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you attend classes at Gannon University.
Yes.
And it's a good program there. But talk to the priest, and this is what I'm thinking, and I'm sure you have questions and everything like that. That probably would be the best thing is talk to somebody who's been through it. I'd be more than willing to talk to.
Yeah. So following that, I guess, was there a specific priest in your
I can't leave it down to one. I mentioned my cousin. There was a large, but we were distant cousins, so I can't say that he was the only influence.
Yeah.
As I said, living next to the rectory when I was a little kid, there back in those days it was a conventual Franciscan rectory. So instead of one or two priests, there were 4 or 5 there at all times, and they were being transferred and everything along that line. One of them was actually my uncle's brother-in-law. So I got to know him a little bit better. He was, my God, he was an old man when I knew him, but he was just the kindest, gentlest soul. So he had something to do about it. And then the parish priest I met at the Resurrection. So I can't say there was one, but there were several that, I want to be like him, or I see what he does, and I think I can do that too.
That's amazing. That's so inspiring. That's really great. So moving on, is there a moment or an experience in your faith journey, or as being a priest, that has really stuck with you? Maybe a mass you've said, or a parishioner you've met. Is there a specific experience or moment throughout your priesthood?
There have been many, and to try to pick one that's the biggest would be hard to do. Let me tell you the latest one. How about that?
Yeah,
And it actually has to do with the community of Our Lady of Pompeii. I celebrated Mass there 3 months ago, I think, during Advent, and the first reading was Jeremiah.
Okay.
And Jeremiah had a tough time of it, and I think he ends up stuck in the mud. They throw him into a cistern, and he laments, but he's affirmed, and God affirms him in his distress. And I spoke about it in the homily, but not a lot. That was not the big purpose. But I just talked about how difficult it was to be a prophet, and Jeremiah really had it tough and everything. And after Mass, I was greeting people outside in the steps, and a gentleman came up to me afterwards, and he shook my hand. He said, "Thank you for being our Jeremiah."
Ooh, wow.
That's outstanding.
Because with all we've done with the mergers and everything, that hasn't all been easy.
Exactly.
And it was nice to hear somebody acknowledge the fact.
Yeah,
and
that's
be affirmed.
amazing.
So that was something, we're making some progress somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, with the merger, there's been many challenges. Is there something that's very particularly challenging for you?
I think what I've noticed, and I've said to some people, is that when you're in one parish and you see the same people week after week after week, you get to know them, you get to be part of their life. Yeah. One of the best parts of it has been getting to know 5 different communities and getting to know people, but getting to know them well. You see them once every 5 weeks or so, and so that's been the challenge is going beyond the surface. I think that's what we're trying to do with this.
Absolutely.
Is just to kind of get a little bit deeper. But it's been wonderful. There are wonderful communities. There's wonderful people at each parish. Each parish has a life of its own and all. Yeah. And I would like to get to know people better, but it's hard.
Yes, that is very difficult. But I mean, we all celebrate Mass. Mm-hmm. So is there something that when you celebrate a Mass, you hope that people experience?
Well, I've said that. I've said this, especially the music ministry part. One of the parts I would say, proud may not be the right word, but one of the things I take as an accomplishment is that in each of our communities, Christ is celebrated and honored and well, and our Eucharist are uplifting. There's something there. The music is good. The quality of the community comes together and everything. So every Mass is a joy. Every Mass is okay. We did what we're supposed to do. We honored God. Hopefully, people are strengthened by the Eucharist and by the Word of God. So that's a good point. I think we're doing well there.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping on the topic of the merger in the Family of Parishes, what's something you're most excited about for the future of the Family of Parishes?
Well, I think finally, we've gone through some of the growing pains, if you will, not out of the way completely. But finally, now when we're starting to combine the programs and all, I see the potential. You know, 3 groups of 20 are good, but when you put one group of 60, there's a
even
force
better.
there that's even
Yeah.
better. I use the example often, which I'm not sure everybody knows about, but the XLT experiences
Yes.
that we've had at Our Lady Pompeii, just had 2 of them,
Mhm.
but there have been 90 plus young people with their families. So it's a full church.
Right.
And I'm thinking, yeah, we can do this. And instead of 30 and 30 and 20 and everything, they can see the numbers and say they're not alone with that.
Mhm.
And so I think that possibility of seeing more people believing like I do and wanting to be like we believe, that's a great potential. And I
Right.
think that
All
we're
those
there.
families coming together in their faith, it must strengthen them together, let them know new
Oh,
people, create such a community.
I would hope so, yeah. I
And
would
it's
think so.
definitely, it's encouraging for us to see how
Sure.
many people
Exactly.
For sure.
actually.
For sure. And to be honest, to use that example too, they seem to take it so seriously.
Yes.
Right.
You know, there's a sacredness about the whole evening that is not whispering and people
Mhm.
moving around and everything. They're
Yeah.
there for the right reason.
It's amazing to see people growing in their faith.
Sure.
It really
Yeah,
is.
especially people our age.
Sure.
You don't
Yeah.
see too often.
Exactly.
How do you hope, so this series, the Growing Together series, how do you hope it helps the parish family grow in their faith?
Well, you know, one of the things I've said this before. I'm at the point now. I'm a dinosaur, kind of old fashioned and everything like that. I'm kind of up on things, but not that much. And so I use social media just to keep in touch with family. I haven't used it much, but even things like this, clips, it's so much a part of people's life and videos and everything like that. That I'm hoping that'll fulfill that need that younger people are used to, and you know, to that content, you know. And to improve the quality of the content that people want, you know, because you
Absolutely.
skim
Scroll and
online
you see
and
nothing.
nothing nonsense and
Right.
nothing along the line. So to put positive things on, this is what we should be doing. And,
Absolutely.
And I'm glad I've gotten a few pushes to move more in that direction.
Good, I'm
I'm
glad.
grateful for that, for sure.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the topic of like your faith and your day to day life, are
Mhm.
there prayers that you stick to every day? Devotion, a saint, something like that? Like, what's your prayer routine like?
Okay. Well, yeah, it's funny you should say this. I was thinking about well, actually, I belong to a priest group that meets weekly to talk about
Oh.
spirituality and everything. And one of the things that I said again, and I think it's at the heart of diocesan priesthood. You know,
Okay.
it's kind of funny because I mentioned I grew up next to a Franciscan rectory.
Mhm.
In Rome, in my education, I was educated by Jesuits and things, but I was always a diocesan person, you know. And the heart of the diocesan vocation is Mass, is Eucharist. And so the largest part of my daily life is daily Mass, and that's obviously a part of that as all. So that's very much of that, and obviously there's a long tradition. Beyond that, there is the prayer of the church, the morning prayer, the evening prayer, and everything along that line. But I get the most strength, the most grace, the most sense of being with God, celebrating Mass each day.
Is there like a daily habit of your faith that you would recommend everyone just try maybe once?
That is a good question. I think one thing, again, the luxury of daily Mass is difficult for people in a busy world.
Mhm.
But, you know, there's a sense of obligation on Sundays, and people go because they feel they have to. One thing I would invite people to do at least once a week is go to church, go to Mass because you want to, not because you have to. Even just once a week, because I think you take that sense of obligation away, and there's an openness, there's a connection there that isn't there otherwise, and everything. That would be the simplest thing I would think of for somebody.
I don't know if you've noticed it, but we've noticed that the masses in our family of parishes are getting busier as the weeks go on.
Mhm.
Is there something you would accredit that to?
Well, part of it is just the reality of the fact is that there are a fewer masses than there had been, so people have to come together and all. But as I say, I think, and nobody has said anything to dissuade me, is I think people are feeling nourished, and whether they can verbalize that or not,
Right.
you know, they're coming back because
they feel
they feel good about it.
Yeah.
So I would hope that's part of it. I would hope it's part of the whole experience. But we have seen good numbers in all those places, and I think it's because
for sure.
people feel even if their old home was taken from them, they can
They're
find
finding
a new home.
Yeah,
They can find
that's
a new home.
amazing.
Yeah.
And as many people that are coming back to the church, do you have any advice for people that are still struggling with their faith? Maybe people who have turned away from the church? and are looking to come back but don't know where to start?
The one thing I would say to this, and this comes back from an old experience when I was first ordained even, is embrace the journey. I know a lot of people who they've been away for so long, or there's still something bothering them that they think they're lost causes and everything. But I'm convinced that asking questions helps you in the long run, because when you work through them, when you're able to find your faith in the midst of that, you're stronger for having tested it. And I said it's, this goes back a long way, because I know two priests in the newspapers, when we had more than one newspaper that had a debate about that. Oh, you can't question anything. You just got to believe. And the other priest was saying, no, it's not that easy. You ask questions sometimes, and it's because you go through that process, because you were able to answer that question and come to some kind of sense of understanding. Then you're stronger in faith. And I really believe that. So, don't feel bad about, why am I questioning this? You are. It's something to work through. There's something for you when you work through it that's worth the effort. I think that's an important thing.
Absolutely. Is there something, if you could tell someone who is struggling, one thing about God's love for them, what would that be?
Well, it's one thing. It's easy to say. You have to experience that. Is that God will never abandon you. That's the one thing. I've said that to people in many ways. And again, sometimes you have to go looking around to show people, see, this is the love of God present in your life. That God never gives up on you. We give up in ourselves. We give up on other people quite easily, but God never gives up on us. And I think that would be the biggest thing. I've said this to people, half in jest, a little seriously. So why are you different than anybody else? Why would you think that you're the only person that God doesn't love?
Right.
And it's hard to answer the question. Why am I different?
Yeah.
We go through questions. We have to work things out. But God loves us. God loves everybody, and just to keep reminding people of that, and showing them, look at your life. You have this blessing. You've had this in your life. There's been good there, and that's been God's presence for you.
I think that's especially encouraging to people that have turned away, maybe are looking to come back, even if they don't talk to God for a week,
Right.
a month, a year. They're welcomed with open arms no matter where they go.
And one thing I've told people too, it's a little cliche of mine, is don't feel bad about feeling bad. Because I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't question God.
Right.
I've had people, say, I yelled at God, and I said, God can take it.
Yes.
Strong, take it.
Be honest with him. If that's where you're at, be honest with him. So don't feel bad about feeling bad. Acknowledge it. Tell God where you're at. And it's when we're honest with God, I think that then that's when the things begin to break down, and God can find a way into our lives.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Wow.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about faith and spirituality and everything. So do you mind me asking a couple personal questions?
Not at all.
Okay.
To know you a little
Yeah,
bit.
to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
When you're not at the parish,
Uh-huh.
what do you enjoy doing in your free time?
That's a good question. I wish I had more free time to enjoy it. but,
Right.
couple
guy.
things. First of all, you might have noticed this. I love to travel. I have these trips every year and everything along the line. And even that is the outgrowth of the church, because the church sent me to Rome for school.
Yeah.
So the church taught me how to travel. But I love to travel, so that's something important. And as part of that, I love to walk. And with the weather we've had lately, it's stuff like that. But if I have a day off and the weather is halfway decent, I'll take an hour or two walk, and wish I could do it every day, because that's one thing I like to do. Otherwise than that, I enjoy sports, watching sports. I used to play sports, but I enjoy following sports and all. That's about all we can do. Just keep in touch with family and friends and everything.
Right. We have a lot of sports teams in Buffalo. Do you have a favorite?
Well, you have to root for the Bills.
Absolutely.
The Bills and the Sabres, obviously, the major league thing.
For sure.
I think that would be the big thing. College basketball has always been a big thing.
For sure.
But then I don't. Having gone to a small college that actually doesn't exist anymore, I don't have a home team or an alumni
right.
team. But I enjoy college basketball. Has always been a big thing too. So.
You said that you studied in Rome. Do you have a favorite meal or food that you had when you were in Rome?
Only one? Yes, I do. And
Doesn't have to be just one.
Well, the big thing that I want to get a chance to go back every 2 or 3 years or so. A good Roman spaghetti carbonara is I would and I've rarely found anything really decent in the States the same way. But
Yeah,
but it
can't
can be
compare.
done. Carbonara would come first. There's a whole line of other words, but it all pales.
Is
comparison to that.
Rome your favorite place you visited, or do you have others?
You know, yes, it is.
Really?
I've enjoyed many places also. London's a place that I've had a wonderful experience with. I've been to Poland a couple times, my homeland, and that's been wonderful. But I've lived in Rome for 5 years. So it's like going home. and
Second
everything
home.
like that. So yeah, so Italy in general, but Rome specifically would be.
You have a
would be
trip
awesome.
coming up to
Yeah, you're headed
Ireland.
to
It's Ireland this
Ireland.
way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Is there some place you're excited to visit?
Well, yes,
Specifically?
I did it when I first started doing these trips, and believe it or not, that would be about 30 years ago now.
Wow.
I went to Ireland, but we only went to the Republic, the southern part.
Okay.
This trip is going into Northern Ireland as well, which I hadn't been. So I hadn't been to Belfast. And if I'm mistaken, I forget. I ask apologies to anybody who's Irish. I believe that the burial ground of St. Patrick is in Northern Ireland.
Mm.
So I'm kind of looking forward. I think that's part of our going to that. So I'm looking forward to that. But
wonderful.
Northern Ireland will be a new experience. I'm looking forward.
For
Is
sure.
Is there any churches in Ireland that you've researched and are planning on visiting?
Well, we're quite a few. One of the big attractions is the shrine at Knock,
Okay.
which is the Marian shrine that I was to once, and I'm looking forward to going back to. But that's probably the major church site that we're going to be going on this trip, and that it's looking forward to. It should be good.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Let me ask another personal question. If you weren't a priest, what job would you do?
You know, it's funny you ask that because I've been a priest. Let's see, it's going to be 43 years in July, and for like the last 40, I've been asking myself the same question because I'm happy as a priest. I love being a priest. I've wondered what would I be if I wasn't a priest, and I never can really completely answer the question. The most obvious thing, because it's been a large part of my ministry, would be teaching in some way or shape or form.
Absolutely.
But I'm not convinced that I would want to do that and only that.
Yeah.
So I've asked myself that question a long time with my interest. What I always come back is I ended up where I was supposed to be.
Exactly.
You know, so-
Exactly.
So let's not lament what I didn't do. Let's
For
be happy
sure.
with what
Being
I'm
a
able to do.
priest, you're doing different things every day. You have a lot of
Exactly.
variety in your
Right.
job in your life. So,
Mhm.
sticking to one thing might.
And that, to be honest, is one thing about a diocesan priesthood. I've said this to guys over the years, is that you don't do just one thing. Like,
Exactly.
You can maybe stereotypical, but if you're a Jesuit, you're going to be in academics,
Okay.
and some work with the poor, which is a good thing too, and everything like that. But diocesan priests are a little bit of everything.
Huh.
And believe me, when with working with the family of priests, you're doing a lot more of everything too. So as far as administration, but dealing with people and health ministry, and there's a real ministry, and you girls are part of that as well in terms of ministry to the grieving. The bereavement is an important part. So yeah, I enjoy all the parts of it, and I really have not been able to answer my question. Yeah, that's what I would have done. I think I am where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and considering you shared that you found your vocation at a very young age, I mean, being a priest has always just been something that you felt called to be, and God leads us where we're supposed to be. So
Absolutely.
I've always wondered. I've always enjoyed architecture in terms of when we're traveling, beautiful buildings. Oh, look what they did. That's interesting. Wouldn't know the first thing about the but that's something I always said. Oh, I could have been an architect. I have no talent, but I always enjoy seeing.
You can appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate the art, the craft.
And that's one of the things of traveling. You got to see so many different buildings, not just the church buildings, which are gorgeous, but and a little bit actually contemporary design is interesting. But I have no design. I couldn't come up with anything. So God put me where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. We were told that you have quite the Charlie Brown figurine collection. Do you want to share with us a little bit about that?
It's to be honest, and they're all gifts because
Okay.
I do have to admit, oh my God, this does go back to grammar school at least.
Wow.
I had an affinity for Charlie Brown. I just saw that was me right there. And as a result of that, people would give me figurines and plaques and posters and all sorts of things along that line. So yes, we kind of have an understanding, Charlie and I.
That's amazing. actually Charlie Brown Peanut fans
We're big
ourselves.
fans.
Wow.
We have grown up going to Cedar Point every year, and
Oh, okay.
the theme of that park is the Peanuts.
Very
So
bad, yeah.
Yeah,
we have all the characters. We have figurines and T-shirts. So
Mhm.
we are
For sure.
Charlie Brown fans ourselves. So
Yeah.
To be honest, I used to use Charlie Brown cartoons more in my homilies, but now it's so far away, not everybody knows what
I'm
you're talking
sure,
about.
yeah. Right.
So,
Absolutely.
maybe bring them back.
maybe-
Yeah.
Actually, I almost used one the other day. Come to think of it, maybe I should have now. but I'll go think
There we
about that.
go.
Mm.
So we were also told that you are a fan of Broadway musicals.
Oh, very much. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? What do you like about theater?
I don't know what it is. And this, again, everything kind of comes from what I've been asked to do. I was on a few committees that had meetings in New York. And so I would go to New York City. And what else do you do when you're in New York City? But go to
Broadway
music.
show.
I really enjoy that. And I'd ask myself, okay, what's my favorite play and everything like that. And I like so many of them. I'm the perfect person because I'll like anything you throw at me. I'm not that critical, but contemporary, and this is by no means original. There is something about Hamilton. Hamilton
Love Hamilton.
fans.
is I mean, it's so creative. In fact, my 11-year-old niece has gotten into it, and we were watching it just the other day, and I hadn't seen it. I actually got to see the original cast.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh!
when I was in New York
Amazing.
City. So it was still in trial. It hadn't officially opened. I'm not sure that's an important story, but I was in New York. And
I'm sure so many people wish to have been able to do that. So that's
I was
awesome.
I was in New York, and it was in trial. It hadn't opened yet. It was in
Okay.
tryouts, and I knew it was going to be the next big thing. So I was there on a Monday. And normally that's shows on Monday. I said maybe they'll have a ticket. So I went to the ticket office, and I was like fourth person in line, and the person was asking for this day. Oh, we don't have it. Oh, they don't have it. I'm thinking like come back in like 3 months later and everything. I said, oh, I almost got a line. I said, you wouldn't have one ticket for tonight, would you? So, oh no, sorry, we're booked for tonight. So, but I have one for tomorrow.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and so I got the
take
ticket,
it.
and it
We'll
was
take
like
it.
about 12th row center stage.
Oh, wow.
It was, and besides being a ticket, it was a great ticket.
That's
And
incredible. See,
that was really wonderful.
we're all learning something new. You're a big Hamilton fan.
Yeah,
That's
there
awesome.
you
Go.
Yeah, there you go. But I love New York City. Rome is part of that too. Living in a city is something I'm comfortable with. And the musicals. I sit there watching these talented people who have voices and I don't, and I just enjoy being entertained by them.
For
That's what I
sure.
come down to.
Sticking on the topic of music, there's
Okay.
a lot of different types of church music, especially still
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite? Like, are you a contemporary fan? More traditional hymns?
I really am a contemporary fan, and I don't know if this means anything to you. It probably does. My generation in the 70s and 80s was formed by the St. Louis Jesuits, and I still even with some of the wonderful things being put out today, when the St. Louis Jesuits started writing, here am I, Lord.
Here I am, Lord,
For
yeah.
example, that was I can't say it was the first time it was ever played, but the first time it was fully played was at my ordination.
Okay, wow.
Because it was a new song then, and the priest who was in charge of my music actually called the composer to get the background pieces and the brass piece and everything like that. So the first time it's kind of like produced as a full number was at
Your
my
ordination.
ordination.
That is
Yeah.
Really
so
cool.
So I really I enjoy that. And what was wonderful about that, besides being good music and something uplifting in tempo, it was all scriptural.
absolutely.
They used scripture as verses instead of poetic. And some of it's beautiful, but when you say every word of this is from scripture, I think that said something about it as well. So.
I love when we find a new song and we'll be listening to it and reading the lyrics, and then you recognize it and you're like, that's actually directly from scripture.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
always something.
That's beautiful.
That's
Yeah,
That's so
beautiful.
fun.
And since we're going into personal things, I might as well tell you, I used to play the guitar,
Whoa, okay.
but unfortunately, my finger had an accident with a softball,
Oh.
and that kind of took me away from that along the way. So I only played for a couple of years. I was never very good, but I was learning and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest thrills, we're talking about that too, I actually got to play the guitar for Pope John Paul II.
Wow.
That is super
How about
cool. How did you get that opportunity?
Well, when I was in school in Rome, he had just been elected. I was in Rome the night he was elected. And that's another story. But later that year, he started visiting the different colleges, and he came to the American College. And so he was coming for Mass, and we were going to have liturgy. And the college at the time, there were about 140, 20 seminarians. There were a lot of us from the country.
Okay.
And some of them were extremely talented and wonderful. We had wonderful music there. And so they got together a group to play the music for the Mass. And they got the good guys, and they said, oh, we should get one of the new guys to do it. And I know the thinking was, oh, we'll get Siepka. He plays quietly. He won't get in the way.
Oh.
So we had our three best guitarists and me at the end playing. And what was funny, and I could find the picture if I needed to, the Vatican photographer was taking pictures as we were going down. And when he gets to the Pope and everything, and he gets to the music, I was the only one in the picture. So I have a picture that it looks like it's me alone playing.
Wow. There you go. You're an honorary rock star for Jesus.
There you go.
There we go.
But unfortunately, this kind of nipped the career. But I do enjoy it. Yeah, so I do enjoy the more contemporary things, but I do have a special place in my heart for that music. That what a God! It's 40 years old now, and all this stuff.
There you go.
But I still think it's prayerful, and it makes a difference.
For sure. Do you have a song you want us to teach the rock stars? Then one of your favorites?
Well, I think you probably have it. Here I Am, Lord, is probably the one that I always refer to, because if I had such a thing as a theme song, because it was played in my ordination, that'd be the closest.
That would be it.
Your theme song.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. There's another one. Now you got me thinking. I'm probably going to forget about it. Let all creation bend the knee.
Is that called? That's not coming to water, is it?
No. We know it.
I will find it later.
I'll find it later.
That's a good one.
That's a personal favorite. I can tell you the story behind that. So I always liked the song, but my very first assignment as a priest was St. Andrew's in Kenmore. And they had a very active youth group there, which I had a grand time with. And they had a gesture group as well that would do liturgical gestures. And again, this was the early 80s, so that was kind of typical. And for Good Friday, they did a gesture to that song. And it was, to be honest, the best one I've seen. I mean, I've seen it and I appreciate some of the things along that line. But it was just lovely. So that's in the back of my mind with that song. It's a St. Louis Jesuit song. I can't remember the song, but I can still, even when I was started humming, I can still think of the and I knew the kids, and they were good kids, and they one's a college professor now, and they've done good things and everything. But I remember that. So,
That's awesome.
She's trying to find the song.
I'm
pretty sure it's Come to the Water.
No, I don't think it is.
It's not Come to the Water.
We'll think of it.
We'll
Hey,
think
they
of it.
don't know songs well enough. Jesus the Lord.
That's it.
Jesus.
Yes.
I was just saying there was something, but
There
there's
we
something
go.
with something along
All right, we'll teach it to them.
There you go. And it's based. I know it's based on Pauline.
There you go.
So very good.
Sounds
We'll make a whole
wonderful.
month theme of it.
There you go.
Absolutely. That'll be March.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go. But yeah, actually, it's well, it's talked about the cross, so it's perfect for Lent. and everything
Perfect.
like that.
There we
There you
go.
have it. That was God.
That
Telling us
was.
to
That
do.
was.
There you go.
Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining this episode of Faces of the Family. We hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more episodes coming soon.